Call to order the Windham Southeast Supervisory Union Board meeting on September 14th for 6 o'clock, please. Actually, at 6:01 it is now. There's an echo.
Yeah, I'll knock it out.
Okay, I'll try that again. No, I still hear an echo. Everyone muted? Okay. Okay, I'm actually just going to start with reading a statement before we dive into our consent agenda. Today, I received a phone call from an SU board member asking me to step down as chair. I was told that the board has collectively lost faith in my leadership. I'm uncertain how to process this request as I have received no previous communications from any board members referencing or identifying concern of SU practices or my role as chair before today. I've used my time as chair to collaborate with our superintendent and bring forward board development and training workshops that outline effective communication and goal-setting strategies. I have been committed to pursuing ethical legal process and working towards seeking clarity on how our supervisory union might be more transparent and accountable when there has been a clear cry by our constituents that they haven't found those values to be represented, nor have I. I have concerns of the validity of this request. If this request does represent the will of the board, there is indication that a majority of the board members have discussed the topic, which indicates violation of open meeting law. This would also be a violation of our code of ethics, which mandates the board members promptly address any ethical concerns of or with fellow board members first with the board. Without prior communication or discussion, I'm unclear if this request is coming from an objective outlook of board members seeking to ensure we operate and fulfill our duties effectively. Truth be told, it feels like personal retaliation in the face of my efforts to instill and abide by correct process across the SU. That said, I am committed to being an effective board member and chair while I am honored with such a position. I will consider this request when clarity of concerns have been provided, and I welcome feedback from the community, our staff, and our administrators. I would humbly step down if there is a community consensus that another board member could be more effective in this role. Thanks, guys. Okay. Moving on. So we need to approve the minutes of August 1st and August 23rd. Can I have a motion?
Excuse me, you didn't ask for additions to the agenda?
Are there additions or changes to the agenda?
There are. I have an addition to the agenda. After consulting with the Secretary of State per Robert's Rules, Chapter 6.2, number 36, I move that this board reconsider the results of the March 16th, 2022 vote for chair of this body.
Can you say that again, Liz? I'm trying to figure out where to fit this in. I've also consulted with our professional services today. Yes.
If I talked with Jenny Prosser at the Secretary of State's office. She's the lead counsel. Per Robert's Rules of Order, Chapter 6.2, number 36, I move that this board reconsider the results of the March 16th, 2022 vote for chair of this body.
Second.
So that, are you asking to amend the agenda?
Yes. And I was also told by the Secretary of State's office that once I made this motion, it needed to be acted on right away.
Okay, I was told we have to make a motion to amend the agenda and then approve the items that are on to be added to the agenda was the order that I was shared with me from our professional services.
Right.
So should we do it both ways to play it safe?
Sure.
Sure. Okay, so
6.2, number 36 indicates, if you read the whole thing, it indicates that it needs to be acted on.
I did read the process. I just was told that first we have to make a motion to amend the agenda with the appropriate motions, because that's the process. And then, to determine if we want to take action on something that hadn't been previously warned, et cetera. So, I'll let you make that motion since it's yours.
I did make the motion.
We need to make a motion to amend the agenda to include your request.
Fine, I move we amend the agenda to take up my motion.
Okay, all in favor of amending the agenda to include a motion to reconsider the vote? Say that again, Liz.
Reconsider the results of the March 16th, 2022 vote for chair of this body.
Thank you for finishing that. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And that was, I heard 4 ayes, so the ayes have it. Are there any other additional changes or revisions to the agenda at this time? None at all? None hearing none? Okay, then we'll continue. So now go ahead, Liz, you can make your motion.
There's one,
Oh.
and I wouldn't get to it, it's not like.
Okay, well, public can talk before we vote, but so hopefully we didn't miss that, but we'll do that one next. Okay, so go ahead, Liz, the floor is yours again. Liz, can you hear us? No, she's right there.
Right there.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I move that this board reconsider the results of the March 16th, 2022 vote
Okay.
for the chair of this body.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Is there any discussion from board members?
I call the yeah. I call the question at this time.
You, what?
I call the question at this time.
Okay. What, I'm sorry, you can explain it to me better. You have more experience. I was asking if there was any discussion.
And I called the question. So that ends discussion if the motion passes.
Well, I still had something to say. I just wanted to raise concern when considering voting on this, that we did not change the agenda to reflect then appointing a chair. And that would put Mark in the position of leading the meeting tonight. There would be no chair until we reorganize. I have verified this with our attorney.
Kelly is here.
It doesn't immediately go Trump that way because it's reorganization. So that is my only concern about taking up this vote now, but that's up to the board. And let's move to public comments.
Michelle, the Secretary of State's office told me we act on it and the vice chair takes over. I was told by the attorney, the
Do you have
Secretary,
something in writing you want to share publicly, Liz? That would be so helpful.
not
Point of
handy.
order. There's a motion to call the question that takes precedence over all of this.
So no public comment?
Correct. There was no members of the board chose to comment. And if the chair wishes to comment, then you have to turn the chair over to the vice chair and then make your comment. And then once the motion is decided, you become chair if it's decided negatively.
Well, then maybe that seems like the best thing. If that's the only way my statement will be heard, that's fine. So I can relinquish the position of the chair.
The point of order, you don't get to talk.
You're out of order, David. You are out of order.
I am, absolutely, because you're not doing the job. Point of order, there's a motion on the
You're
floor.
out of order. You know what's great? We have.
Point of order is never a,
We can just look it up. Fact check
yeah,
it.
look up
So
point of
great.
order, preferred motion.
The question is whether you're right, using for small boards.
Right, which we don't have fair establishment, where we tend to use large Robert's rules and not follow small boards.
Larger Robert's rules, as I understand it, would require you to pass on the direction of the meeting. For small boards, the chairman can talk to a motion.
Okay, well, we haven't established that we're a small board, so we're gonna have to go by the original, but thank you for bringing that to our attention. Okay, so that's fine. I think that the point that I needed to make was valid, and I think that having a place on the floor is deserving, so Kelly can take over this motion right now. And I'll add that to the discussion that we need to verify, because as it was explained to me through our legal counsel, and professional services, is that we needed to have two distinct motions to then reorganize the board and to nominate for a new chair. today as a following procedure. So that was my comment. And now we'll move to public comments. Who is next? Or is there people wanting to speak?
Is Kelly now the chair?
Yes, I said that.
Okay, so
David, we will give 2 minutes of public comment on this, and then we will vote.
okay.
Jackie, I think you're up.
Great, thanks so much. I can't express how disappointing and upsetting this is, that this is brought before the board with no prior warning, no opportunity to explain to the public why you're making this decision, and clear evidence that you all discussed this out of a meeting because it's the first we're hearing about it. 4 of you voted in favor of this. You clearly discussed it before. You're definitely out of order and in violation of open meeting law. And I think you need to stop what you're doing right now before the problem becomes worse. Wildly inappropriate.
Also, it's possible for people to communicate just 2 at a time.
Robin, yes, again.
Yes, I would agree with Jackie. This motion seems extremely shocking, and the fact that the question was called before any of the board members, including the chair, had a chance to comment about why this is happening, especially in the context that people who have been watching these meetings can see that Michelle has continuously been asking for more transparency from this board. And so for the rest of the board to try and oust her in some sort of process that is extremely opaque to the public just seems like you are doubling down on doing things without being transparent and public about that. I really think this is a very bad look for this board, and I'm really concerned about eroding trust in the board, in this community, at such an extremely important and fragile time for our entire community. So I would really, really ask the board strongly to reconsider this motion. And if there are some issues that folks have with the leadership of this board, that those be discussed in open meeting. Thank you.
Mindy Haskins.
Hi, I just want to say that I've been attending the WSESD board meetings, and there's been a lot of concern about the lack of information released by that board. And I happened to be still on the meeting after an executive session about a month ago, and I heard Michelle requesting clarity on the finding for the next executive session, and was treated to the yelling match of Kelly Young yelling at her and then Liz yelling at her from the Zoom. And it was really disturbing and unprofessional. And I guess I'm really wondering if this is some kind of retaliation for Michelle actually requesting what the public has been requesting, which is more clarity on the reasons, the findings for those executive sessions, and more transparency from the board. I'm not a community member anymore. I'm an alum, and I'm involved in the investigation in different ways. And I feel very concerned by the kinds of actions I'm witnessing. And it's really eroding confidence in this board's integrity. And since so many, you're all members of the other board too, and you're actually controlling a lot of what happens around this investigation. And so I feel very concerned about the integrity of a board that would act in this way.
I'm just telling you who's got hands up. Dan.
Hi there, Tammy McNamara, parent of students in the district. I'm hoping you guys can hear me. I don't have a great internet connection, but I just wanted to express my concern about such a large topic being brought up unwarned. The folks who were privy to this information are the folks that happened to show up to the school board meeting tonight. Nobody in the general public knows that this is going on right now because it's completely unwarned. And I do have concerns about the way that this was raised. It's not a good look, guys.
Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? Okay, are there any board members who would like to speak?
Yes, Kelly, I'd like to say something.
Thank you.
I think, given the response, our intention that two people spoke about this, we were very careful to not engage other people in the conversation about the motion. I was asked to make a judgment about how to go about it, and I shared that, what I knew about it. And the intention was to avoid having to go through a long description of the challenges and the reason that the board has lost confidence in the chair. Given what I'm hearing from people that I deeply respect in the public, I would like to table the motion until our next meeting, which means that it will be on the agenda and it can be passed by a simple majority. So I move that we table Liz's motion until our next meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
I didn't
All
get
those-
called on. Didn't get called on. Nobody can see me and my hand thing doesn't work.
Okay, Liz, do you have a comment that you'd like to make?
I do have a comment. To be perfectly clear, this motion is not one that gets put on the agenda. You do not put it on the agenda. It comes up at the meeting, you vote on it, you elect another officer and you move on. Well, you elect the officer the next meeting. But the Secretary of State was quite clear with me. And while people can say, oh, you know, the disrespect, I will say this, I don't want to go into a lot of this. There's a lot of reasons for this. But one is causing havoc at WSESD meetings by refusing to listen to the chair, going on and on and on when the chair had said it was the end. And at the following meeting, the chair clarified that before the public about what was to happen. So there was no board talking to each other. I emailed with David, but that was it.
Melanie Khan, I think.
Okay, she has 1 minute and then we're going to vote on this, on David's motion.
Yeah, I mean, really, Liz, wow. Wow. I mean, wow. You've been in the newspaper.
Okay, this is not a time for public attack.
No,
If you would like to speak to the motion itself, then you're welcome to do so. Other than that, no public attack.
This is a public comment. You're actually not allowed to stop me. It's a public comment. And Liz just said something that was empirically untrue, which is that there has not been communication between board members. Clearly there has. And like, have you all not been reading the newspaper? This is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Everybody who's watching this, all 30 of you, board members and so on, like, take a deep breath. Unfathomable to me that you would do this to Michelle, who, oh my God, has just been trying to hold you all accountable for just this type of behavior. Just this type of behavior. She has been trying, oh, Liz, don't shake your head at me. She has been trying to hold you, Liz, accountable. You, Liz, and you, Kelly, and you, David, and she is getting the boost. This is going to be on the front page of the newspaper tomorrow. And you all are so insular and so untransparent and so unevolved that you can't figure this out. This is a board run amok. This is a mess. This is a disaster for our kids in this community. And you all should be ashamed of yourselves.
Thank you very much for your comment. And I'm going to say one thing. There have been a lot of things that have happened, whether it's by email, amongst different board members, and not a quorum of board members, but different board members having seen and been subject to different behaviors or different experiences that have not been brought up. And if that, I'm not sure whether that's appropriate to bring it out to the public, but I think that's something that the board will have to determine. And, but we will now vote on David's motion. All those in favor of tabling the motion as,
Aye.
let's,
Aye.
Aye.
the motion is tabled. The chair position goes back to Michelle.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay. Moving on to the approval of our minutes. I need a motion to approve the minutes from August 1st and August 23rd. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from August 1st and August 23rd?
So moved.
Thank you, Carrie. Seconds are indicated. So all in favor of approving the minutes from August 1st and August 23rd, please say aye.
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 Nays or abstentions? Discussion? Sorry, I should have already said that one. Okay, the minutes have been approved. Moving on to warrants and payroll. We have a lot because we are on summer recess. I need a motion to approve the warrants. I'll start with there. From June 8th in the amount of $1,129,045.88. From June 22nd in the amount of $318,047.26. In the amount, from the date of July 6th in the amount of $791 million. Is that a typo? Feels like it is. I have an extra $791,110.50. That would be a large budget. From July 20th in the amount of $614,587.75. From August 3rd in the amount of $1,336,136.34. From August 17th in the amount of $183,806.15. And from August 31st in the amount of $82,096.44. Do I have a motion to approve the warrants as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion or questions?
I thought I had a question, but now I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find it in time.
There's a lot there. It's hard.
I know.
I try to have a whole page for Frank. I never sent it to.
But I can ask the
Okay, we can
question
always go
later.
back. Okay, all in favor of approving the warrants as presented, say aye.
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 Nays or abstentions? The ayes have it. Moving on to payroll. May I have a motion to approve payrolls from June 3rd, 2022 in the amount of $524,995.70. From June 17th, 2022 in the amount of $800,905.11. From July 1st in the amount of $416,768.07. From July 20th in the amount of $416,768.07. And from July 29th in the amount of $384,680.45. And from August 12th in the amount of $448,616.31. And August 26, 2022 in the amount of $508,573.29. So a motion to approve payroll in the amount as presented.
So moved.
Thanks, Carrie. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, David. Any discussion or questions? Okay, then all in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there abstentions? The ayes have it. Okay, next on our agenda is new hires or resignations. Mark, do we have any new hires or resignations?
I don't know.
We had the resignation of a para educator from our IS services at the high school.
Do we have that name or should we wait till the next?
Okay. No.
So we're good. Okay. We had a bunch last time, so that's good. So moving on to the administrator report. Mark, what do you have to share with us today?
Okay, thank you. Well, a couple of things. Noticing later on in the agenda is Superintendent Evaluation. So I thought I would take some time this evening to share my own personal goals that I've established for myself for this school year, which directly relate to our school improvement goals for our supervisory union. And as well, I'd like to take some time to just provide, well, I'll start with that. And I brought hard copies for board members. So for myself, I have 5 distinct goals. I'll kind of summarize them, not get into too many of the details. But goal number 1, most importantly, is to bring together a new leadership team in a cohesive, efficient manner to benefit our schools, teachers, students, and families. Consistently this year, we will meet as a K-12 leadership team once a month to develop a common vision for the school system. These meetings will be used for dedicated agenda items to move our continuous improvement plan forward. With continuous focus on MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support, EST, educational support teams, and DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Development that are all central goals to our plan. Each month, the full K-6 elementary team will meet at least once per month, and we will start the year meeting with the BU6 campus leadership team weekly or bi-weekly. Some of the challenges that we are facing, which I've shared in the past, but at this point, we have all new administration at BUHS, a new elementary school principal, a new elementary school assistant principal. 3 out of our 4 administrators in special ed are new and here tonight to be presenting, which I'm excited for them to have that floor. New special ed coordinator or curriculum coordinator. We have a new district literacy coach, diversity, equity, and inclusion district coach, and a district behavior coach to be hired in the future. So that's a lot of turnover for a full leadership team. I talked a bit about a reflection from our admin retreat in August already. And last night I discussed our first admin team at September, and I have very high hopes for our team. We've been able to hire some very excellent people. So it'll be my responsibility to keep us united and moving forward to benefit our students. Other goals that I have are moving from defining best practice in MTSS and EST, which was our focus last year, to implementation. So my hope is throughout the year to provide examples of how we've moved from best practice to actually boots on the ground systems, structures that we developed and that we're doing in all of our schools. Goal number 4 would systemize access to coaching through diversity, equity, and inclusion office and the curriculum and assessment office. So bring those 2 offices closer together. Ensure that DEI standards for the school year are reflected in our current plan. Support consistent and regular opportunities for DEI leadership and curriculum and assessment leadership to collaborate. Ensure that DEI goals are reflected in each monthly full admin meeting and that these agenda items are planned in collaboration. Curriculum and assessment office to ensure clarity on data benchmark windows and expectations around benchmark assessment tools. I've shared this recently. Explore and implement peer observation to support the implementation of MTSS, ESC, and DEI this school year. Personal professional development. I will be meeting weekly with former Superintendent Elaine Pinckney. We have identified a day and time to meet weekly. And I have begun participation in the Vermont Superintendent's Leadership Academy. First meeting was last week, and I will continue to attend VSA meetings throughout the school year. So there's more details in the document, but those are my goals that I've identified for myself. Before we turn it over to the special ed department, I also wanted to provide, as this being really the first SU meeting of the school year, I wanted to give a sense of the systems work that we have around leadership and collaboration that are in place. And working to put in place. So currently on a weekly basis, we have a Tuesday morning central office meeting, which consists of, at the central office, which consists of the superintendent's office, human resources, special ed, curriculum and assessment, and business. It's a weekly ongoing meeting to look at the holistic view of what's happening in our school system. Our curriculum and assessment leadership team meet commonly on Friday afternoons with the DEI office, as well as an afternoon session with all instructional coaches, school-based instructional coaches, and supervisory union instructional coaches. So those are systems that are in place as we're starting this school year. Special ed, I'll negate because I think that's going to come up a little bit later. But other formal structures that we have in place currently is twice a month meetings between superintendent's office, special ed, curriculum and assessment. And a major function of those meetings are developing agendas for full admin meetings and smaller meetings with principals. Full admin team will meet formally once a month. Elementary principals will meet with myself, special ed, curriculum and assessment, formally once a month, and the BU6 administrative team with myself, special ed, curriculum and assessment, formally twice a month. So there's a lot more, but I wanted to give a feeling of the structure that's in place for us to collaborate as an administrative team and work through issues, identify problems to solve, and support one another to ultimately, of course, support our students. But without structures and systems to work together, things fall through the cracks. So just wanted to give a feel for how we have established the school year. Moving forward, we can dig deeper into kind of what these look like. But I felt this was an appropriate time to share some of those structures in place. That's it.
Yeah, I have to say I'm so impressed because it felt like a few months ago, it felt nerve-wracking. There was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of open positions. And then it just seems like we just had this turnover of really strong, wonderful candidates fall into place. And I can just tell, like energetically by the way that you communicate, that you have like a confidence. I can feel it different, and it's and that we can feel that. So I'm excited to see this year, to see all the work that you accomplished and to learn more about what you guys all do, so that we can understand your work better. So, which will bring us, actually, it's not Tate next. it's Frank time. We're moving on to our preliminary financial report.
Okay, very good. I'm going to hand around a summary of what was sent out on last week, and it's on the website. So this is just a brief summary of that 52-page report. And Paul, is it all right to share screen? Does that work okay? And our Zoom folks can.
Do you want this page on the website?
I have it up, Paul, if I can, or yeah, if I can.
Or if you want to share your screen.
Yeah, is that easy? Is that easy to do? Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to project the same document on Zoom so folks can follow along if they wish. So what we're looking at is fiscal year end report for the supervisory union. And let's see if I can squeeze this down a little bit just so we get it all on the screen here. Then I don't have to scroll around too much. Okay. So the document you're looking at is the summary. It's in the same format that we use for the annual report and the budget process. And if you had a chance to look at the full report, it's organized in this format here. And on the far right side, you see the page number references to the detail report. The detail report is 52-page document. And as I say, it's on the website. It was sent to you all by email on Friday. What we're looking at here in the first column of data there is under total revenues, 27,666 is it was the revenue budget for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. And we had a proposed balanced budget, the same amount for expenditures. Unlike the SD and in Vernon, oftentimes if there's been a prior year surplus, we might actually budget a lower revenue amount to refund part of the fund balance. But typically we don't do that for the SU because it's not a taxing entity and it relies on its fund balance for working capital. So when we compare the results of the operations of the supervisory union for the 12-month ending June 30, 2022, you see up on revenues, we received 2.4% more than the budget plan. So that was a favorable variance. And down at the bottom, you see that we spent a little less than the budget. 27,539,000 versus 27,666. So that's another favorable variance of 0.5%. So the revenue favorable was 654,000, and the expense favorable was 127, and you add those two numbers together, and that's how you get to that bottom line, 781,000 surplus on the bottom. So that would be the addition to fund balance for this fiscal year. In general, though, it's again a reflection of our system. When you look at a 0.5% variance from the plan, that's a very small variance on a $27 million budget, and it reflects as Marcus said, a very good team working well together, internal controls that are in place and functioning, good infrastructure in terms of systems that we have in place, and those procedures, along with very capable people who operate those systems. Maybe a little bit more about some of the variances on the summary page here. The largest one might have caught your eye, line 15. I'm just referring now over here so you can see what I'm referring to. That's actually a program reference. So program 15 over here, food services. You probably recall we talked about the unpredictability of the USDA funding in the context of the pandemic. So we've gone through now 3 years where when we built budgets in November, December, there was no definitive guidance on the extent to which the USDA would be reimbursing us. Typically, it was that they would reimburse us somewhere around 50% of our costs. But as you see, we ran a substantial surplus there. The budget was 1.7 million in revenues, and we received almost 2.5 million. That's about a $790,000 favorable variance. And it's because the USDA reimbursed a substantially higher, essentially the full cost of the program, substantially higher than past. But again, when you look at the bottom under expenditures in food service, you also see that we spent more than the budget. We didn't spend all of that. We spent $586,000 more, right? 2,284,000 there on the bottom is 586,000 more than the budget. And that is a reflection of the higher volume of meals, the really incredible services that we received from Cafe Services. They're now called Fresh Picks. I know you recognize, this board recognized Ali West and Fresh Picks at the previous meeting for the exemplary work that they've done and the recognition that they've received on a statewide level. So we will use that additional resource for food service next year. You may recall this year, fiscal year 23, this current operating, we budgeted no contribution from the districts to the SU to operate because of this surplus. So we're going to consume this surplus in this operating year. You know, like the SD contributed over 300,000, Vernon maybe a little less than 100,000. That those contributions are going to be covered by this surplus. And that was part of the budget plan for fiscal year 23. We didn't know what the USDA was going to do in fiscal year 23, but we knew we were going to have a surplus. So that's really the major variance overall. As you see, we still came out pretty close to the budget plan. And so where we did have favorable variances, we had some unfavorable variants that offset that. And you can see in the special education area in the middle of the document, total special education was 3.4% over budget. I'm sorry, that was a favorable 3.4%, or another way to say it is we budgeted 15,155,000 and we spent 14,600,000. So we spent $500,000 less than the budget. But I guess the point I was going to make is that when we spend less than the budget in special ed, we get less revenue. You know, you see up top there, the revenue was a little less than the plan, so no problem or no surprise there. So there's the summary overview. I'll just scroll through this Zoom document for 30 more seconds, just to give you a little bit more context when you do have a chance to look into the details. The next page is the balance sheet, shows our assets, our liabilities, and then the difference between assets and liabilities, of course, is fund balance. And it shows that same $781,000 surplus on the second page of the balance sheet. That's on this file here. And then what I didn't want to do is knock out a whole bunch of trees. So if anyone wants the hard copy, I'm glad to run it for you, but there it is on the website. I'm scrolling through it now for our Zoom audience. And this is the document that is essentially every line item in the supervisory union budget. It is what the board reviews. Typically, we review the administrative and in supportive instruction group, then we review the special education group, then we review the grants program group, and then we review the food service group. We do that between late October, month of November, and mid-December, we look for a public vote, an SU board vote, so that those assumptions can be integrated into the Vernon and the SD budget. So this document is in that same format. Any questions? Here?
As always on food services. I'm gonna get it some year. Did Vermont do the universal meals? Are they paying for? And how does that factor in here, and when does that start?
Yeah, the legislature did make a one-year commitment this fiscal year, FY 23. And essentially they're repeating it's not 100% reimbursement, but they are repeating a higher subsidy for the food service programs.
So between our surplus and their money, we're covered for.
We were
a year.
we'll at least break even, and it's possible we may
You
run
may.
another surplus.
Okay,
We are looking at the infrastructure, so the equipment that we need to operate food services, and we're making sure that we're moving forward with any kind of replacements that in this fiscal year so that we utilize those funds.
okay. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Thank you.
I just add, I made the point at the SD meeting to fall within 1% of
It's amazing.
close to $30 million is pretty incredible. Great job.
It really takes a good system, and we have excellent people at all levels, central office, but also obviously in our buildings that take responsibility for this budget plan and spending and implementing.
Ultimately goes for our kids, right? It goes directly for the kids. So.
Thank you very much. And so now we get to move on to our special education update, and we have a new director of special education, and I got a chance to meet you during when you interviewed with us, but so I'd love if you just start by introducing yourself and sharing a little before you dive into whatever you want to tell us.
Great. Well, it's my honor to be serving as the Director of Special Education for Windham Southeast. And also want to introduce my coordinators, Randy Levesque, Whitney Line, and Joseph Garuda. And I'm going to have them talk about their goals as well. It's with their skilled and dedicated work that we are meeting the needs of so many students across our district. Those needs have escalated throughout the pandemic. I provided you with a sheet showing student numbers and our staff ratios. What it doesn't capture is that every student is unique, right? And we need to meet the needs of each student individually within special education. So providing them a free and appropriate public education. And I'm confident that we're going to do that this year. In spite of being a new team together, I think that we all communicate well, and through Mark's leadership, we are coming together with all of our administrators and having a really tight group. It's inspiring. So I'd like first to let Brandy talk about ECSE and her goals for the year.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'll say I was on the special ed team, the early childhood special ed team, for 2 years prior to taking on this role as a coordinator. So I have a view of it, but with the lens of being a team member rather than the coordinating the team. But so I have 4 kind of overarching goals for our team of 14, which includes me. And one of those, I'm going to talk about a couple of them. In special ed, we report to parents on children's progress a couple of times a year. In early childhood special ed, our team has been in the practice of reporting to families and teachers on a fairly regular basis, weekly or monthly, about how things are going for kids, their goals, the objectives that they're working on. So last year, I kind of piloted a new way of this communication, and I'm asking my team to do that this year, where the communication logs lists out the goals and objectives that each child is working on. And then that's, my team is utilizing that to take data while they're working with kids or just soon after to kind of I want them to take even better data. We use a lot of anecdotal knowledge about kids, but I want to build in more like quantitative data so that they can write really good progress notes. Teachers and parents are like seeing, their eyes are on their goals and objectives on a regular basis. It keeps them in the forefront of everybody's minds, and helps you know if you're like working on the right goals, or if you're working on something else and you're never getting data on that goal or objective, then it's time to rethink what you're working on. But I think this will help, though, to avoid having to rewrite goals mid-year, because staff will be taking data and then using that to write good progress notes and to write really good present levels about students, and then therefore write really good, measurable and appropriate goals for children. So that's kind of one of my major goals for my team this year. And another one is kind of aligns with our MTSS or MLSS work we're doing. And the last 2 years, I was a coach on this team and providing coaching to the early childhood community around kids' goals and accommodations. And we have Instead of hiring a coach to replace me, we hired another special educator case manager. But in so doing, we're sort of putting that coaching on everybody, each of the special educators. So, I mean, they already do this on a pretty regular basis, but increasing their capacity to coach teachers on kind of universal foundational practices to meet kids at that like tier 1 or level 1, and then a little bit more targeted tier 2, so that all children are included in a meaningful way and are getting the most out of their educational environments. So that we're working on building their capacity to write, in their consultation time to be really concrete about the actions teachers are going to take in order to include kids.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. I have also worked in the district 10 years as a special educator, then 8 years at Academy School. And so I have just a lot of historical knowledge of the systems and structures of special education. And I'm so excited about the direction of this team and the greater leadership team as well. One of the things that I loved about Academy School and working there was how close the team of special educators was. We just took it upon ourselves to meet weekly and discuss kids. And that's something that I found really powerful. And so that's a practice that I'm looking to develop as a system for all the elementary schools. And so in collaboration with Becky Filoso, who works on our West Evaluation team, and also all of the principals, we've set up meetings every other week at each of the 7 elementary schools, just to go in and work with the special educators and really develop, there's so many times as a special educator where I would be like, all these kids, they're doing great. They're working towards their goals. We're seeing progress, but man, like I am puzzled by this one kid. I've tried everything in my bag of tricks and I need support and help and other ideas. And I think that's okay to say, and just making a space and a system and a structure for collaborating with each other and recognizing that there's immense expertise in each of the buildings and people have different areas of expertise, and we're better together when we use that. And just the added power of having administration, myself and principals at those meetings. So if it's a problem of resources or schedules or something that the special educators feel like they can't solve independently, that we can come up with a solution right there. It doesn't have to wait, for the email train to get going, that we can really just hopefully solve problems and just build on each other's knowledge base. And so that's really something that I'm excited to do. I'm excited to be in schools as much as possible. I think that's one of the most important and essential components of my job, is just to be present with kids. I want to, it's a lot of kids at a lot of schools, but I want to know them. And I want to get to know all the case managers really, really well as well. Another thing that we've set up as a whole team is just a rotating Monday schedule. So every Monday we'll either meet with the speech language pathologists or the intensive services classrooms. And the next Monday we meet with out of district placement case managers. If you look at our school calendar, often there's only 3 Mondays in a month. So it worked out pretty well. And that's just, again, to work on alignment of goals with each of those teams, and just to have touch points with all of them to make sure that we are supporting them in their work with kids and solving any issues before they become larger than they need to be.
Thanks for having us again. So this is my 5th year as the secondary special education coordinator, starting, and my 7th year in the district. And over the course of that, we've really had a real focus on cultural shift within the greater buildings of BAMS and BUHS, specifically around supporting students in their social emotional needs. We've built a pretty robust behavioral services program and program services that we like to call them, that at this point now, other neighboring SUs are coming to us and saying, hey, how did you build that? What does that look like? Can we send people down to kind of see what's happening? So that's been kind of a cool thing. As everything, it's always a goal is to continue to build that. The pandemic and the shutdowns and things like that really impacted how we support kids who are struggling to access education for behavioral, social, or emotional reasons. And so, we're back in a rebuilding phase because we know that we're not going back to normal. We're moving forward into the new, and we have to continue to build those. So that's one focus for this year, is to continue to reassess that. With that, we've become a popular training site for graduate level social work interns from Smith College. So we've been hosting now, this is our 4th year, graduate students from Smith that come up and spend their 1st or 2nd years of internships with us, with our cadre of licensed clinical social workers that support our behavioral teams. As a whole, academically, we have really committed to, and it's been great that both buildings have really committed to improving our MTSS systems, or MLS, multi-layer systems of support, so that we can increase our amount of inclusion in the secondary level. Historically, that's been a challenge in specifically the high school level because of how content courses are delivered, and how do we better integrate, differentiate for students. And so this year we've actually really moved into the next level of addressing the GMG report around access to, like, we've shifted more roles of special educators from being content specialists in pull-out courses for small group instruction, and having them be access specialists embedded in core departments so that they're accessible to students in general education classes to support their IEP needs, and to help collaborate with general educators around differentiated instruction and intervention in real time, rather than waiting and hoping that we have the opportunity to do backfill work or support learning that hasn't happened yet. So that's an exciting time. It's we've been kind of building the bus as we drive it down the road. And so far I was checking in with some teams, some folks that work on the math, in the math department on that team. And they were really excited about the success that they're having right now. They're feeling very like there's a lot of success in implementing that, specifically in courses like pre-algebra and algebra, where they're able to really support student learning in the moment, in classes, and they're seeing effects already, and we're in week 3. So I'm hoping that we can continue to build on that and have more of that. So that's our goal.
I want to emphasize that's a major shift for MLSS movement at the secondary level. I think that's a really important point that you just made. So it's exciting.
I was going to ask, it's, it seems like, you could just be a parent and understand that classrooms have struggled through this whole pandemic, and that kids are delayed. And then it seemed like special education was extra concerning because it was so hard to do direct to work with them. And so when you talk about all this collaboration, is this like stemming from because we were with Act 176, 173, sorry.
Name a number.
I took a graph, 173. Is this like that motivating factor, or was this sort of already present, but your goal is to be more effective at bringing this into the classroom to build up support? And do you feel hopeful that will maybe offset? Especially I worry about high school, at least the younger kids, we have more time to kind of compensate, but I can imagine those challenges for those kids without that added support through these years.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, the findings of the DMG report, which ultimately led, I think, to some of the decisions that were made in Act 173 as well, have been around for a little while, even pre-pandemic. We knew it was coming down the pike. So there was already a thinking around how do we address some of these things that are statewide that the DMG report revealed as to common practices in our programming that isn't best practice, right? And that's what the DMG report really did for the state. And so that was our implementation. Looks like I have a question.
Oh, go for it.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Thanks.
Thanks. Sorry about that. I wanted to just welcome Tate, Brandy, and Whitney. I'm Jackie Reynolds. I'm a parent of this little girl who just she just aged into the school system and is enrolled in special education services. Hi. Also, Joe, thanks for sticking with us. Hang out another 10 years so you can work with this kid.
I'll do my best.
And what I really wanted to say is that we are already feeling positive effects of you guys' work. I've gotten so many updates, and it's only been 3 weeks, from all of Annabelle's service providers, and it has been such a breath of fresh air. And I've been asked for a lot of feedback, and I really enjoy providing that feedback. So my new email relationship with our new people has been really great. I look forward to our team meeting coming right up, and just I'm having a really good experience so far. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thanks,
Jackie.
And Annabelle.
Yeah. Go ahead, Liz.
Let's see, Brandy, I'm really happy to hear what you're doing. I know that when Lisa worked with CIS, there was this big gap with teachers not really knowing what to do. So it was just CIS really working with the child. And I'm glad to hear you addressing that. And of course, I know you from years gone by. And you know, what a great early childhood educator you were. And I'm really pleased to hear all the different changes that all of you have brought to the table. It sounds like you have good leadership with Mark, but also just you guys stepping forward and saying, we can do this and we can do this and we can do this. And I'm so pleased to hear it. Over the years, I'd heard so many complaints, and it was difficult to hear things that you thought could maybe be improved, but nothing was moving anywhere. So I'm really excited to see how everything goes. Thank you.
Fantastic feedback. And it leads into some of my own pieces to share with you quickly. I know we're taking some time, but we really value the opportunity to share. I wanted to first celebrate with you all that we just received our local special ed determination for 2000 to 2001. So it's 2-year-old data. And so I want to thank my predecessor, Shelley Wilson, and the really dedicated and skilled team that was providing those services and ensuring that we're maintaining procedural compliance. So it's all about compliance, and we were at 80% compliance, which meets expectations. So there's no type of plan or improvement piece that's being warranted from that process. Areas that we're going to continue to improve are helping kids to score proficient on tests like the SBAC or alternate assessments, improving our least restrictive environment, our inclusion, trying to get 80% of our students at least 80% or more within the mainstream classroom, our early childhood outcomes, our ECHOs, doing our child find, our initial evaluations for students that are suspected of having a disability within the timeframes that they've prescribed, which have changed a little bit over the years. And so we're changing in response to, I'll talk about that in a minute. Our transition plans, which help students be ready to transition into the world of work or post-secondary education, and our post-secondary outcomes, whether students are moving on to post-secondary education versus competitive employment. And of course, parental participation is a huge piece that we're going to continue to bolster. I'm hoping and in the process of developing a special ed parent advisory council, a CPAC, and I will be seeking community members of any background. We will look for a diverse group. I'll be looking for initial stakeholders who are interested in participating to develop an application, and then we'll advertise that and set up a team structure. And that'll be an opportunity for parents and community representatives, whether you have a student in school or were a student with a disability, any number of reasons why you might be committed to giving a voice and being a stakeholder to provide feedback about initiatives that we're doing, our budget process and priorities, and just hearing what the community feels about the hard work that we're doing to support students with diverse needs. All right, one of my goals is to maintain effective and responsive teaming processes and documentation to ensure procedural compliance. It's kind of our backbone, right? And to avoid having attorneys step in, which always muddies the water and indicates that a team is in need of a lot of support to rebuild trust and clear communication. One piece with that is our child find and having an every 2-week initial evaluation planning standing meeting for elementary and then for middle high school levels to support our child find requirements. And that is the 15-day rule that when a parent or teacher says, I suspect a disability or I'm requesting a special education evaluation, we have 15 days to meet and say yes or no, we're going to proceed with that process. That's been hard for us to meet. And so this is a structure that some of our neighbors have already been implementing and we're trying. It's just for initial evaluations. And in the light of parental participation, we will break outside of that to ensure that parents have the opportunity to team and be a part of those processes. But we want to have these set in place on that schedule so that we have our team members available and are able to do that efficiently and responsively. Responsiveness is really an important factor for us. The next is really, that effective resource allocation to ensure that we're meeting student needs. So I provided you with the staffing ratio sheets. You'll notice that by school down below, it shows numbers that are like 8.8 to like 10.2. Those show the ratio of number of students to a special educator in a building. And as I mentioned before, that's a number, which is one piece of data. What it doesn't reflect is what that student's needs are and the level of intensity or frequency that they need services from a special educator versus a paraeducator or other related service provider to meet their needs. This has helped us to allocate and cover an open position in one of our elementary schools that we were unable to hire for. And so utilizing this type of data, we were able to get help from 2 different schools to cover a need that we had. All right. Our staffing, we're doing fairly well, but we still have positions available. And so are still seeking a special educator and several paraeducators that are really critical at this time. And so we're actively recruiting. Another goal is that school administrators will be updated at least monthly on special ed students who are progressing outside of expectations. So that's a part of that MLSS again, and being responsive that we are looking and keeping a pulse on our students' progress in special education, and that administrators are responsible for all students in their school, which I'm confident they assume that. And it's in light of the Andrew F. Supreme Court decision that we expect more than minimal progress and that we ensure individualized and responsive special ed services and supports. Finally, it's collaborating, not finally, but collaborating with teaming within our MLSS will strengthen our instructional practices for all students. We'll be using this process to identify specific learning disabilities starting next July. That's a big task. So our team will be working hard to determine how best to do this within our systems over this year. Finally, I wanted to put a plug in. We are having the opportunity to develop a Southeast Regional Collaborative. This will involve an investment by our SU. And I want to encourage that this is a wise investment that's in light, really, the spirit of our ESSER funds. It's truly transformational. And it's a model that's functional across our state. We are just missing that piece. You mentioned the DMG report, so I'm glad you're all familiar with that because we've contracted with K-12 Solutions, Nate Levinson, who wrote the DMG report and who has a lot of experience with helping develop collaboratives across the nation. So his priority initially is to hire a director. So they're in the process of recruiting a director. They hope to have that completed by January of this year, and then be offering us responsively national recruiting. So this will be particularly meaningful for our specialists that are very hard to find, our speech language pathologists, our occupational therapists, school psychologists, PTs, OTs. I mean, the list goes on, and some of these people are incredibly hard to recruit. And this might be that we would recruit for a whole person. They would just be helping us find these people, or we might purchase a certain number of days. So if we have needs that aren't the full salary and benefits of a staff member, we may be able to get a day or two in a certain area. This will also help us develop regional programs such as transition programming for our students with developmental differences that need programming to help work their way into the world of work and be an active part of their community. Helping with developing therapeutic day programs that we could all use to have more in our region, or helping with school-specific programs, helping build it, staff it, and then hand it over. Aside from that, things like transportation resources and other regular ed things like professional development opportunities that we can all collaborate and benefit from together. So hopefully in the future, we will talk more about that, and I'll encourage you that this is a wise opportunity.
I brought it up a little bit early before the meeting started, and on the proposed calendar that it's still a draft form. The October SU board meeting would be an opportunity to invite Nate Levinson and dig deeper into what a collaborative looks like and what the benefits are. Because that January date's coming fast.
It has been floated to us in the past.
Right.
We've heard bits and pieces about this concept, and I have a good memory, but I know the public will want to hear about it, and the refresher will be helpful. But yeah, it seems, especially when you live in rural Vermont, like a really great way to approach meeting everyone's needs. So can I ask you to just for my own keeping, so when I'm looking at these ratios of teachers to students at need, I have the instructional special ed ratio versus the ISC FTE teachers. What is the difference in those numbers? What does that mean to me?
So
Who doesn't know any?
that's the first set of numbers are the number of special education, certified special education staff in the building.
Okay.
The second one is the ratio of those staff to the number of students they're serving. So we would hope that, a mainstream special educator may even get between 11 and 12 students on their caseload at any given time. One of the tricks is to have efficiency, be responsible to the taxpayer for the number of positions that you're filling and maintaining, while also having capacity for students who move in. And so mid-year that we're not saying, oh no. So I am really happy that these numbers are approaching that 11% kind of mark, or 11 students per staff. But there are obviously a lot of factors that go into why our staffing numbers are this way.
How does mental health fit into this? Or where does mental health fit into this? We're hearing a lot about the additional mental health needs based on the pandemic, and it's going to be years of services before students start to recover from them.
My experience has been that you don't make great educational gains academically if you don't have regulated kids. And so with the pandemic happening, we've seen such increases in our needs for social emotional supports, and really working on providing instruction in things like character building and social emotional learning, as well as having those therapists or guidance counselors available to meet with students and help them develop skills so that they can be in class and be available for learning. So I think it's pivotal, but special ed only has a piece of that. And then there's a much broader piece of the supports for all students. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
One thing I would just say about the FTE ratios is that also incorporates case managers who work with some of our, multiple and very challenged students and so their ratios look very different. And so that, sometimes that's a reflection of 3 students with 1 special educator because of the programming intensity that is required to support their learning in a school setting. And so, we often have case management in the 12 to 16 realm, and we have case management that looks like 5 to 1 because of just the differing intensity. So
I can remember some really clear testimony on why 15 was really hard and it made total sense to me. And we had to make a decision. It might have actually been, well, it must not have been until like 2020, because that's when I would have been here, but to make sure that we had two special educators at both Guilford and Dummerston who had a lesser population, but they were serving like, well, especially Dummerston serving a K-8 model and having one special ed teacher and understanding how spread thin that was and how they couldn't do their best.
Yeah.
So it was a lot. So I actually thought those numbers looked good. I was like, I just wanted to make sure I was reading them correctly. It's a lot of little digits.
Right. The schedule often prohibits us from taking kids from core instruction. Not only is that our primary, objective, that all students are exposed to core instruction. And then we're layering on for that AST teacher, that layer 2, to give the supplemental. And then on top of that, to add that tier 3 or layer 3 for those kids who need even more. And so that scheduling is so critical, and it leads to challenges and opportunities. And so we're constantly refining that.
Question? You had mentioned at a previous meeting about changing the master schedule, or maybe I saw this at an SD meeting. And did this all get incorporated too, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
And
So in one of my goals I stated earlier, moving from defining best practice to implementation was we had focused work last year to redirect our master schedules to set us up for this school year.
Okay.
So it's detailed in my goals, but a lot of those elements for an MTSS master schedule, we've identified as best practice, like common planning time, data-driven decision-making, clarity on data expectations, core instruction for all students, as well as explicit time for intervention and enrichment.
Okay.
So those are kind of the frameworks that we use to build our individual master schedules. And each school is different because of the different types of resources and the layouts of the school.
Well, thank you, everyone. This is excellent. We, as Mark has started to work out agendas with all 3 boards and to really establish something for the year. I just said, I want to hear from you guys about what you do and what you think we need to know and what you're working on. And then how do you keep track of that? And how can you share that with us? And don't forget to tell us what makes your job hard and what kind of support you need. And so it's really nice to just get to hear you guys talk about what you do. I will share that when I sat in on the interview for your position, Tate, I walked away and I just felt like, I learned from listening to you guys talk. Like, it was like you took turns interviewing each other, but it was a learning experience for me to listen to what you guys wanted to discuss to figure out if you were going to be a good team. And it was really cool. Like, as a board member, that was a great thumbs up to feel like I'm learning from listening to your interview process. So I'm can't wait to see how this just keeps growing. I think it's a lot of new stuff. New times, new superintendent, lots of new people, but it's feels like we're going in the right direction, and it's just going to keep being well developed. Thank you all.
welcome board members to come visit our schools, and see what we're doing and see what it looks like on the ground.
Thank you for that. Yeah. It'd be nice to have it more officially arranged, not just as the mom. That's like, I'm running. So, okay, now where are we? Get back to my agenda. Okay, next on our agenda, we have our board development workshops, discussion, strategic planning, and implementation. I pulled my notes. So Paul, I don't know if you could pull up, this document was attached to our agenda. I have a lot of good paperwork in front of me today. So. Sorry, guys. Here we go. Okay. So I wanted to put this on the agenda. It came to my attention that there were still lingering questions that I was hearing from some board members.
VSBA.
This is our board development workshops. And so these workshops were approved by the SU board at our last formal meeting in the end of June. But it was taken up for discussion in an executive session. And the reason for that was that because it was wrapped into a contract that was multifaceted. So it included information that was confidential because it pertained to evaluations with our superintendent and mentoring contracts, and that stuff stays confidential. But this is an example of a piece of it that's really could be on the floor, just if you can break it out of the contract. And I think it's important to share and for our community and our board members to all have like a nice, clear time to review it and understand what the point is. So that is why I wanted to bring it out and bring it forward and up for discussion. And really, I wanted to just give Mark the opportunity to talk about this. This came as something that was developed through the Vermont School Board Association, and Mark and his mentor were counseled on this. And it's really created to, I'm doing the talking and I said you would, but created to support collaboration and creating systems where the boards could work with our superintendent so that we have clear objectives, clear goals and clarity around expectation, and can create systems, strategic systems to work together effectively. So, but Mark, I'll let you talk about what you're thinking about these workshops and what you hope to gain from them as we move forward and continue to schedule them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the descriptions speak for themselves, but for me, clarity around expectations and what's expected at certain times of the year in terms of presentations or data or feedback is incredibly important to my success, to the board's success, and then ultimately to the success of the school system. So the sooner and the better we get aligned is better for all involved, I believe. I think we all should be pulling the rope in the same direction towards improving our systems for kids. And if this will help us get there, great. But, there's got to be a commitment.
Yeah. So one of the things that I do think that we need to keep on our radar, and it might indicate joint board meetings with all of the boards to participate in or to even decide, because there was a little bit of confusion when we had our first meeting as to whether the work being done in here constituted being the work of the board, if it was like a learning opportunity, or is there opportunities for us to be effectively doing the work of the board. And so an example was creating operating norms. As we move down, some of it is there's creating governance calendars. Obviously, some of this we're already jumping on top of and starting because we can't wait. But there's things about defining that. And so I just wanted to raise that question to this board and thinking about how we want to move forward with that. Do we want to establish a meeting with the board chairs to identify, or with Mark and his mentor to identify if is it best to be most effective to call this the work of the board, or keep things separate? Or do we just need to have this be a bigger conversation for another time? I just didn't want there to be a disconnect of expectations, which there was at the last meeting, our first workshop.
You just wrote this over.
So I especially look at, the third, developing the team. It's working with administrators, which would look like different things because there's administrators for all three different boards. But there are specifics such as, multi-year thinking plans. And some of it's more our board specific, cycle of evaluations, although it could be applied for, I suppose, principals if you're looking at a school district board. So it's just food for thought. We don't have to make any decisions, but I just know that we have another session that would be coming. The Vermont School Board Association had to find a new facilitator to run these meetings. They just sent me a bio about an hour before this meeting that I forwarded of the person that they've selected. And that person is traveling, so it'll be a slightly different schedule. So we will need to collaborate with Mark and the three different boards to see what participation might look like to accommodate that schedule. So I also want to give that heads up.
Is that for part 2?
Is that the what?
For develop the plans?
It would be there.
Or is that person doing all of
the
them?
request? I will have more information. Everything comes at the very last minute from the VSBA. I'm always like, I have a meeting tonight. I need to share. So the request was, I think do 2 nights, like back to back, and then do another 2 nights. And so, scheduling board members and administrators, that can feel pretty challenging, I think, is my only concern. So
Okay.
I'm just wanting to hear feedback on best approach moving forward in scheduling that. If we should try to arrange a meeting with the chairs of all 3 boards and, and just kind of hash it out together and then we could bring it back. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Or just put out the dates and see what can work for people.
I could go either way.
You can go either way.
Being one of the chairs, I could be.
Yeah, I would think starting with the chairs to get
Yeah.
a coordinated view to bring back to the boards. So I agree with Carrie. Is the first question is about whether this is board work under open meeting law question, or whether it's more training and educational.
Yeah, I feel like as it develops and you keep looking at what's to come, they've advised that this is, for instance, let's pull one up. It says, draft board operating protocol, which the SD nor the SU has a formal one. And so this would be an opportunity for us to do that and formalize it, but then that's doing the work of the board. And so we'd have to be mindful of if that meeting needed to be warned. It doesn't have to be remote. It could be in a different location. There's other options. Although actually the new person may have to do some remote. So we might have to have a remote option. More to come on that. And so that was something else, another piece of discussion, again, that maybe needs to happen with all of, board representation to determine best steps, like how can we be effective and make the most out of these workshops, but also make sure that it jives with everybody. And, and that's because this is the time to sort of rearrange and maybe shift things around if we need to do that, so that it works with the majority. So at a fair starting point be, I'm hearing, it sounds like, try to schedule a time with Mark and Samantha or the VSBA, the 3 chairs. Does that make the most sense?
Yep.
Okay. I didn't want
I'm
to,
game.
I just got this information in the last 36 hours. They sent something on Monday and then she sent me a bio today. I was hoping I'd have it for last week to share a little, but I didn't have much to share. So, okay. So then keep an eye out for that email and we'll get that ball rolling.
Okay.
And were there other questions on that? No other questions on that. Okay. And then, so the other piece, we also have our superintendent evaluation services that were contracted that also came with this board development piece. So something I found out that I thought was really interesting, was that the current rubric, you've all seen it, and that was also shared if anyone's curious. The VSBA has a standard rubric. And apparently the current rubric was used by our SU, maybe with Lyle Holiday.
Okay, yeah.
And
tweaked it though.
Well, they said that the board members spent diligent time and the VSBA actually adopted their recommendations as permanent changes.
Really?
They said they were thoughtful and indicated. And so they have adopted the changes that were made from the WSESU,
That is
those members who were
awesome.
on there. So essentially this rubric already has the handiwork of this SU board from the years past. And so typically we're in a kind of funny situation because Mark's coming in new, but he did a year with us last year. The evaluation process, we had talked about them sort of doing a baseline, just getting the ball rolling. But it seems that it really all aligns. It starts, and Mark, please help me remember anything that I might be missing, but it basically would start with sort of a 360 evaluation being sent out to the various stakeholders using that rubric. And then from there, they create a report and then they would sit down with the board to analyze it and to help assess and create goals and et cetera. So a question is, do we need to review this rubric? And then the process would start again at the end of the year, which is more typical, but we're trying to start it sort of belated from last year. So do we want to have them just start the process? Do we want to schedule a meeting with the VSBA to review the rubric now? Or do we want to use this first attempt as a baseline just to kind of get the ball rolling, knowing that over the course of the year, it'll be continued to be refined and cultivated so that by the end of the year, we have our own strong evaluation system in place.
Can I ask what, the rubric is huge.
It is.
So refine and cultivate means identifying areas that we agree we want to focus on and then
We can
monitor.
either use it as presented, or they could come in and sit with us. She wasn't available tonight. The VSBA is doing their annual meeting. Otherwise, they would have been here tonight to offer that up.
Were you on this evaluation when we did it with Lyle? Okay, so I was, and it came about because we realized we didn't have a job description. So the first step, we actually had to create a job description. And then we took the job description and we made sure that everything in the job description made it onto the rubric so that we were evaluating based on the job.
And thank you for it, because they adopted your business.
I am. So I think I like option 2, which I think we all need to review this.
With the VSBA.
I think we all need to do our homework
Oh, yeah,
first.
yes.
And then I think we need a separate meeting with the VSBA.
To go over it
To-
first. Okay.
Yeah, this is big.
Well, yeah, and to understand how they use
Understand,
it.
right,
Because
right.
it's comprehensive.
And they probably could
It's not
then,
useful as an evaluation
unless, yeah,
or monitoring. You can't monitor all those things.
no. But if they could then walk us through the process, I remember feeling like it was a quite daunting process before they walked us through it. And once they tell you what services they're doing and how they're going to do it, you feel better.
So we're okay with it kind of not, I don't know that would, I guess it's still sort of like, once the rubric is established, still
Mhm.
like a baseline, because that is
Yeah.
a starting point.
Yep.
So I just wanted to make sure, because I know that we've had some conversations about getting something to work with and then spending the next year developing it. So I just wanted to make sure that was the will of the board. So that works for me too. Kelly or Liz, do you have anything to contribute?
I didn't get to see the documents until late, so I have not really had a chance to review them well enough to comment.
We didn't get it till late, so she needs to review it.
Okay,
So I
okay.
think she's.
Okay, and Mark, do you have any feedback? This directly pertains to you, and anything that would work for you. Would you want to embrace having this feedback sooner than later? I know you've already presented that some really clear established goals for yourself going into the year.
I mean, I think I would want my goals reflected in the rubric. And I think that's probably pretty easy to do. The rubric's pretty large. I think giving people time to review it and then come back to the table makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then I will see about having the VSBA representative here for our next meeting on the agenda to review the rubric with us, and board members could have this month to send notes. And if there's questions, I'm sure you can send it directly to them, or we could pull them together and send them over too. So feel like that was a consensus, not vote worthy, but okay. Okay, and so then we're just wrapping up.
Are we voting on these?
Oh, yes. Oh, how did we skip right over that? Nobody called me on that. And David left the room. I looked right overhead at the preliminary financial report. So we do have our VSBA dues that have come up for us. The dues for the VSBA are in the amount of $10,992. That's, I think, what we paid last year pretty much falls in line. And the money is, the way it's divided, 50% of the total amount is to be raised by dues, will be assessed equally across all member supervisory union or supervisory districts, or all board members across the SU. And 50% will be assessed based on the average daily membership with the member supervisory union / district. But the balance is $10,992. And so I have a motion to approve paying our dues to the VSBA in the amount of $10,992.
So moved.
I will second that. Is there any discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of
Oh, Liz has got her hand up.
Go ahead, Liz.
Let's see. Did we get any refund for that workshop in July that went wrong?
I'm sorry, can you say that question again?
Did we get any refund for that workshop in July that was problematic?
We paid one fee for multiple services and they're being rescheduled and the VSBA is accruing any additional expenses on their part due to the need to change the facilitator who'd be running those workshops.
Right, but did we get like a reimbursement for that workshop in July? Did that come out of anywhere?
We did not receive a reimbursement.
Okay.
I think that the services total for evaluation services, collaboration and meeting with the mentor and board as needed, and then the workshop with a lot of wiggle room. If you look at that sample, it was actually 4 workshops, but it went on to talk about really specific opportunities to develop those. One conversation is once, as all of the boards participate, having a follow-up with all of the chairs so that we can continue to develop, and with Mark and the mentor to continue to develop those sessions. So it's not just those 4 sessions, there's more services. It's sort of a moving product that we bought too, but I think it was $8,500 total was for all of those expenses, the evaluation and those workshops and that support. So, any other questions or comments?
Would you feel comfortable asking them about that? Because we clearly paid for something that.
If you would like me to, I can certainly pose the question. I think that because we're continuing the contract and we're going to be receiving the services, I'm not sure that it's indicated. But if that's something that felt important to the board, I can of course pose the question.
I think it would be worth pursuing because it fell down, it was problematic. And I don't think they should be reimbursed for something that we should pay for something that turned out to be problematic. That's, it's holding them accountable for their staff. So.
Okay, I think the first step would probably be to reach out to our attorney and to find out if that's indicated and have him review the contract. And then we can also check with them and just see their feelings on it. Is that the other board members support me moving and asking those questions on behalf of Liz's inquiry?
I'm okay with that.
You're okay with that?
Yes, I support that because I feel like that we may have received some services. It was, we did not receive.
I think she supports it.
You're a little choppy, Kelly, but it sounded like you do support following up.
Yeah. But that is different than the dues.
That's different than the dues, which is where we're on next. Yes, that is a different topic that jumps us back to the board development conversation. So, and I will CC the chairs on those correspondence so that you can all see what's going on. Okay, so we were, I think we had any other questions or comments, because that was actually not about the dues. Questions or comments? No. Okay, all in favor of paying our dues to the Vermont School Board Association in the amount of $10,992 for the next fiscal year. Please say aye.
Aye.
Nays or extensions? Very good. The ayes have it. So sorry, I missed that on the page.
That's okay.
Okay.
It got done.
And next, let's see if it's pulled my document, my wording. We are going to just enter a brief executive session. I'm going to be inviting Mark in, and we're just going to be following up a little bit. He shared some of his goals with us. We've talked a little bit about our contracted evaluation service with the VSBA. And so we're just going to talk a little bit about some of the personal responsibilities with our superintendent and his evaluation process that he might prefer to keep confidential. So we will be, I'm sorry, I'm looking for my language. I need a motion with that finding to enter executive session 1 VSA 313A3 under evaluations.
So moved.
Thank you, Carrie. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, David. Any conversation or discussion? Okay. All in favor of entering executive session under,
I'm assuming with Mark.
yes, and inviting Mark Spino in under Title 1 VSA 313A3. Say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Nays or abstentions? Hearing none, we'll enter executive session at 7:41. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. So we are rising from executive session with no action taken at 7:58. And that just leaves us with any public comments that we're not given time for on agenda items. Do we have any public comments tonight? Any hands or anyone needs to speak?
No hands.
It's muted.
Somebody's muted. Go
Jackie's got it.
ahead, Jackie.
Whoa. Hey, hi again. Thanks for letting me back in. Michelle, I just wanted to say that although many of us found the beginning of this meeting very, very difficult, you were really collected and poised in what must have been a challenging situation, and you proceeded and ran a really professional and wonderful meeting. Excellent, excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Thanks.
No other hands.
No other hands? Everyone's good with this?
Madam Chair, there being no further business before this meeting, I move we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
That was for Anne.
I'll second that. All in favor of adjourning at 8 o'clock on the dot?
Aye.
Aye. All right, you guys have it. Thank you very much and good night, everybody.